I guess it's probably running into too many two-legged trees in my life. But, Royce, I'll tell you what, poured a lot of water on me, because when you talk about the Doug family, or the Young family, I apologize, I had a 1 hour and 43 minutes speech, and he wanted to cut to 5. But, it wasn't an awesome family. And I know, you know, I've known all of them for 6 decades, probably. And, Doug was special. He was something else. Young brothers, they could be 3 of the 4 horsemen, or 3 of the 4 horsemen of apocalypse. And 3 out of 4 were fire, famine, pestilence, and death. And I don't know which 3 they were. Before you talk about tough, quick, never seen a family like that. Now the Southpaws, they were adept and adroit at throwing the football. 2 of the Youngs were bone crushers, and the other one had the best pair of hands I've ever seen, and that was the younger brother. I think he caught probably 29 touchdowns his senior year. That's more than I've caught all my life. But old Doug, we're playing on that 60 team. I was looking at the paper, of course, when you go back 53 years, you miss a few points. I loved the belly spats. You could ask Art Prowse there when he had to follow me there in Abilene about 8 years ago. But anyway, Doug, I saw in the paper where he weighed 178 pounds and he was All-State and All-American his sophomore year. Now, he was precocious as a sophomore. I don't know what that means. I can't spell it. But he weighed 167 pounds and his number was 78. But I remember a couple of things. Coach Wood, and then I'll try to cut this short. We're playing Breckenridge. We hadn't whipped them since chili rice. Kicked everything through the goalpost in 1941, 2 months before December the 7th, Pearl Harbor. Had a chance to beat them, I thought. Then they had a guy somebody mentioned before named Troy Kennedy was their running back. So, as usual back in those days, you know, people had nothing else to do but watch football. I mean, there was no social networking. I didn't have television. We had a pre-World War II radio, so what do they do on Fridays and even Saturdays? When football's in town, they pack the stands. I mean, including 6 deep in the south end zone by the junior high. And they were that way that night, and Doug and I was anchoring the defensive line. And Kennedy was running all over on that Breckenridge sweep. And old Lawrence had a brilliant idea. Doug, let's swap sides. And Doug being a sophomore, I wouldn't ask him that years later, sophomore, he said, okay. Switch sides. Till he come at me, use my hip for a mop, my rear end for a broom, and run about 25 yards. And old Doug looked at me with a jaundiced eye, and I shrugged, and I forgot it was almost halftime, and time Doug and I got in the dressing room, Gordo had a full head of steam coming out of his ears. He said, Young and Elkins, come here a minute. So we walked over there, and he said, which one of you think you're an assistant coach? And Doug looked at me, and, you know, he had a panic look on his face. I said, Coach, that was me. He said, I thought that was you mullet. But, you know, people out here like me, we didn't know what a mullet was. He did, because he spent a year with the Victoria stingarees down on the Gulf of Mexico, and he knew that was a worthless fish that used in catfish. He said, Mullet, I checked with Morris and Pete. Of course, that's the entire coaching staff. Gordon Wood, Morris Southall, and Pete Murray. And neither one of them remember appointing you assistant coach. Don't you ever do that again. And then Doug walked by and was going out the second half, and he says, Elkins, why didn't he just tackle Kennedy? And I wouldn't have been in that trouble at halftime. But anyway, another time, I'm getting pot in my house, I don't know. Another time we're playing Jacksonville. One of the coldest days of my life in the state semifinals. in Waco. They called it Baylor Stadium then. That's before a family gives you millions and you put their name on the stadium walls to the university. But anyway, we're there, and the only two times that it's colder is in a blizzard at Colorado Springs against the Air Force Academy and up against the Buffalo Bills in late November. It gets pretty cold in those places. But over Ronnie Moore, you know, Doug was hoping his own that first half. Moore and I was having a problem. I had the guy over me that later became a famous T-Sip and was all pro tight end for the Jets when Joe Willingham whipped the Colts in Super Bowl III. He was beating me to death. But Doug held his own, but in the fourth quarter, I broke through and blocked a punt. And man, I saw those golden posts, and here's the chance for glory. And I was stumbling around. The guy just kicked me in the abdomen with that football, and I was cold, I didn't feel it very much. But went down the field, and I saw this streak of white coming in from the right, and I knew exactly who that was. Old Doug come in, cut my legs out from under, covered the ball, and went about 5 yards through that freezing water. And I'm looking, and I said, young, I never mind, and I walked off. But anyway, wound up beating. Pete Lyman says at least they held us 12 points, won the state championship, and I've seen it, like I said, known the young all life. Saw Doug in the 90s. I'd come back and doing things over in the Middle East and met him in a place here somewhere. And he came up, and I thought it was Bart the grizzly bear hugging me. I said, Doug, anytime you can give me my rib cage back. But he was so wide that I only reached halfway around those little wings that come out on his body. But you know, quick people, great people, great athletes, some of the finest that ever came down Austin Avenue, and so were these people. I mean, I'm proud of all of you. It's a great honor being in this thing. And Gardo he was something else, and Morris and Pete and all that. What I'm going to do, and I'll get out of here, boys. Let me read a letter that Dr. Scott wrote years ago about Doug. I mean, Dr. Terry Todd, not Scott. He was an Olympic powerlifting champion and a doctor, a sports injury guy and everything. Has a farm out by San Marcos. And I'm going to read this. I'll wait through it. Doug Young. Once upon a time, there was a young athlete of unusual ability. He played football during high school and college and started every game he was well enough to start. But like so many other young men, his knees just couldn't stand the strain, and so his desire to play pro football was sublimated as he eased into marriage and a career. The tight, rugged sinews of his playing days began to go slack as he lived the life of a middle-class American, eating too much, drinking too much, tubing it too much, and sitting too much on his fat aspirations. His weight grew to 240 pounds, and he was teased about his size by the men with whom he worked. And so, on a bit with these men, he began to diet, he began to lose, and in less than 2 months, he stepped on the scales at the local gym and weighed 178 pounds. The same day to test his strength, he worked up in the bench press to a maximum single of 305 pounds. That was January 26, 1973. Approximately 8 months later, on October 1st, 1973, he came back to the gym, weighed in at 260, and worked up in the bench press to a high of 540 pounds. Yep, 540 pounds, again, 235 pounds of lifting in 8 months. These truly incredible gains were made by Doug Young, a man who is now the 242-pound champion of the world. The 1975 Nationals were held at here in York, Pennsylvania, and lifters from all over the country would stand at the Yorktown, the final hotel in the downtown section. My wife and I also booked a room there, mainly to visit with old friends, but also to be handy to the marvelous bounty of that Yorktown Friday night seafood buffet. When we checked in, I learned that the desk Doug had arrived early in the afternoon, and so when we got to our room, I called him and arranged to meet that evening to feast on the buffet and catch up on old times. Jan and I got there first and made a run through the boiled shrimp and the fresh crab meat. We had just settled down at my preferred corner table to enjoy a long evening of good food when two things happened that really made an impression on me. I don't suppose I will ever forget them. The first thing that happened was that Doug Young walked a foot or two past the big double doors of the dining room and just stood there. His shoulders seeming to touch each door jamb, and his deep hand, 22-inch neck, slowly turning this way and that as he looked at us in the crowd. But the second thing, the important thing, that was when Doug walked in the room, the entire place grew quiet. Everyone, lifters and non-lifters, stopped talking, stopped eating, and simply stared at what they knew was one of the most astounding creatures on God's earth. Doug was wearing tight Levi's again, along with a cowboy shirt and a pair of handmade Western boots, and let me tell you, he was a showstopper. Anyone who can't take the minds off 200 people eating heap of plate foods of some of the best food in the world has really got to be something. And Doug is. I've seen most of the top bodybuilders of the last 20 years and of all the top lifters, but in the casual street codes, the most impressive physical specimen of all, bar none, is the big stud horse from Texas who silenced that huge room full of hungry people with a slim hip, bull-shouldered, dangerous-looking splendor of his awesome physical presence. And I think that was a fitting